Carissa Schmidt. I am going to be going over six factors or six sections of the saxophone pedagogy textbook. So the first is going to start with assembly, disassembly, and handling of the saxophone. So to begin, taken apart. So we have three main sections of the saxophone. We have the mouthpiece with the ligature and a reed. We have the neck, and then we have the horn itself, the saxophone itself. So first we're going to start with having a neck strap. Always have a neck strap placed on you first to be able to attach your saxophone. Next, I've been sucking on my reed so it's nice and wet. You don't want to play on a dry reed. It's going to squeak. It may not produce sound nearly as well or at all. It's good just to start with it being wet. So I went ahead and I screw it. So this wooden part is the reed, and then this is a ligature, and this is the mouthpiece. So when I did it, here's my mouthpiece. Put my ligature on loosely, have it like kind of pulled up so that use the flat side of the reed, the table of the reed, and we'll push it butt ends downward and match up the rails, which are the sides of the reed and the rails of the mouthpiece. Make sure they're all aligned, there's not sticking out or too far, and put your finger at the top of the mouthpiece to make sure it's level. And then you'll hold on to the butt of the mouth of the reed and push the ligature down so that it is past this little flip. You don't want it to be over it. And then you tighten the reed on the ligature. You'll tighten the little fasteners. And then, and I've already done it, but on the cork of the neck, you want to make sure it's been greased with cork grease. And then you just slide, twist action the mouthpiece onto the neck. Okay, so now I'll put that down. And now I'm going to grab my horn itself. On the horn, you usually want to hold it by the bell or underneath the bell. But right here is a loop. You want to loop, connect your neck strap to that. And then grab the neck / mouthpiece combo now. And on the neck is a little metal piece right here. You want to align that with this metal piece that kind of sticks out, but be very careful for that. You don't want to bend it, break it, damage it. We want those two pieces to be kind of aligned, and then tighten the screws to tighten your neck to the horn itself. And now we are assembled. So now that we are assembled, some basic hand positions is you want to imagine you're holding a water bottle, seized in your hand, and there's a pad right here that doesn't do anything, it's just a pad that's for your thumb, and then your first, you'll only use 3 main fingers, go on this, the regular size pearl, seconds on the regular size pearl, thirds on the regular size pearl. There's a little mini pearl, that's for the B flat, so that we don't put our fingers on regularly, so it's the 3 regular size pearls. And then on the bottom, there's only 3, so 1, 2, 3. And then your other thumb will hook onto this little hook. So that is like a counterweight balance along with your mouth on the mouthpiece. Is kind of a balancer, helps support your saxophone aside from your neck strap. With your neck strap, you want it to be where your saxophone comes straight to you. You don't want to have to raise it, and you don't want to have to lower it, like bring yourself to it. You want it to be able to come right to you. So you don't have to go to your saxophone because it's too low. Plus it'll help with your neck comfort and just proper playing. You're not like altering your airway flow. So this is the finger positions and basic hand. Anytime you are going to go use a palm key, there's 3 palm keys. It's just like a little turn of the wrist basically. And same with these. You have 3 right here. Those are just, you use this part of your hand, just kind of a little movement there for accessing your different keys. And then the next section is embouchure. We will go over the disassembly portion at the end because we're just going to make it all come round. So on your embouchure, you want to be relaxed. It's not like the clarinet. So you want um, your bottom lip to be rolled in like this, and have your mouth about where the reed meets the mouthpiece all the way. So probably about half to 2/3 of the way into your mouth. Like this. Have your top teeth resting on the top of the mouthpiece. That, like I said earlier, works as a counterbalance for your saxophone. And then you want your lips to be like this. You don't want it to be like too tight. If it's too tight, you're going to have trouble getting sound out, or it's going to be raising your registers. And you want to hit the note you want to hit right when you hit it the first time. So you want it to be relaxed. So yeah, it's nice and relaxed. If it's too tense, then the sound's just going to be very difficult. With your embouchure being kind of like this, like a soft smile, not like a super tight smile, but just a soft smile, that allows you to breathe through the sides of your mouth where your mouthpiece isn't, and that's for the next section of breathing. Anytime you need to breathe. So, for example, let's start on D. So you heard a squeak. That is because of not having quite a set enough embouchure. So that's why having your embouchure set is important. Also, when playing the lower notes, you want to have a lot more air, pushing out more air, pushing down your air. You don't want to be moving your jaw up and down like you can sometimes on like brass instruments. But you want to be, instead of, you use the back of your tongue, you'll arch your tongue to push the air downward to make warmer air for the lower notes, and use a lot more air because you're having more tubing of the horn to go through versus the higher up notes where it only has a little bit, so it doesn't need quite as much air. So the way it depends on how much mouthpiece is in your mouth for your tone quality. So say I have less in my mouth. It's very like motorboat horn sound. It's not very full. It's very weak, and also more of my mouth is on the reed, like pressing down on the reed. You don't want to be pressing, especially on like tonguing too. But you don't want to be pressing down too much on the reed because the vibration of the reed is what makes a sound. So if you are pressing down on the reed at all, that stops the vibration, which stops sound. So that's not very far in. Here's too far in. Yeah, see, it makes it very honky, very high pitched when you're way too far. And here's just right. Next, we are going to go over air usage and breathing. In your music, you want to find the best places for capturing an appropriate sized breath. So you don't want to breathe over a bar line. You don't want to breathe in the middle of like a tied section. But it's best to find, and not in the middle of a phrase either. So all of these limitations. So it's best on longer tones, like if you have two half notes tied together on the second half note, making it only a quarter note or a dotted quarter note. That gives you a whole note worth or a eighth note worth of breathing, or a quarter or an eighth note worth of breathing before you move on. If you have dotted notes, taking away the dot and using that dotted value as time to breathe is important. Making sure you're placing breathing in your music and finding appropriate places will give you proper air support, which will help with the sound. It'll help you with longevity, and also it'll just make it way more comfortable actually being able to breathe and not be, you don't want to be doing that all the time, and you don't want to be going full steam using every single ounce of oxygen that you have, and then getting to a spot where it's really weak once you get towards the end of your phrase that you're playing forever on, and then breathing in a huge amount. That does not sound good in the middle of playing. So that is the proper air usage and breathing. Remember, we use the, you don't, yeah, when you're breathing. So you don't want to take your mouth off the mouthpiece while breathing. For one, that takes a lot of time, and it's just not really functional. It's not practical. So you leave it at your mouth and go as you play. And then our last section before we hit disassembly is going to be our tonguing and articulations. So there's different articulations. There's a tonguing articulation, and then there's an air attack. Air attack is the way you release your air without using your tongue on the reed. So we're going to start with the air attack, and then we will go with the tonguing, which involves your tongue to the reed. So that was an air attack. I just was. That's just using my air for articulation versus here's a tonguing. Sorry. So the tongue, you don't want your tongue to envelop the whole reed, because like I said earlier, it's going to stop the vibration, which is not going to get you what you want. But you want to use just like this far back in your tongue, this far back, the back part of your tongue, to kind of just kind of like raise it a little bit, enough to kind of like just touch the outside, not clamp it down, but just like touch the outside for each articulation. So the last part especially, I was going between tonguing and slurring. Slurring means I'm not using my tongue. And I went back and forth between using it and not using it, so you can see the difference. And at the end, when I was just doing the straight eighth notes, those are all tonguing. So here's the tonguing, and then I'll do the articulation air attack. That was the air attack at the end, and here's the tonguing. So you can definitely feel the stop kind of on the reed when you're using the tonguing versus the air attack. Here's air attack again. Sorry. So it's very staccato and precise. Okay, so let's see what all we've gone over. So our first tones, you want to, especially on the lower notes, you're going to need a lot more air. The higher notes, you won't need quite as much air. So here's the difference between a D3 and a D4. The D3 is a lower D. You can hear how there's a lot more vibrato, a lot more sound, a lot more volume with the lower D3 because I have to push out a lot more air. You want to push out a lot of air from the beginning and not just slide it in. If you slide it in, you're not going to hit the D right away. But if you just start with an air attack on your note, you should always start with an air attack. That way you hit the right note. You don't hit an impartial. You don't hit an octave above. You hit the D. You want to make sure that you're using enough air for your tone. If you just, here's the difference of a lot of air versus a little of air. So here's a lot. Versus just a little. It wavers a lot. My abdomen is just tight the whole time versus if you breathe your air in through your stomach, your diaphragm, you can slowly release the air versus if you breathe up, everything's tight. You kind of actually deflate versus like deflate outward, which is kind of more of an inflation. You're not taking the air in. So if you start up high, everything just, but if you start, you use all of the air, you keep your posture, and your tone quality is way better. So now that I've gone through assembly, handling, basic fingerings, embouchure, our breathing styles, our air usage for breathing, and our articulation with air attacks and tonguing, we're now going to go through the disassembly of the saxophone. So leaving the neck strap on till the very last thing will protect your saxophone. So now that I am done, I will go ahead and remove the neck from my saxophone, which is gentle twisting. And now I will grab it by the bell, take off this, and it's missing a cap. So with my saxophone, I have this cap right here to protect, mostly to protect this little piece. And I will put it away, and then have my cap for my reed. You just twist it back off. I'm going to clean it when I'm done, so I'm not going to put everything away. But then I unscrew my ligature, hold the butt of the reed, pull off the ligature, pull out my reed, put my reed back in its sleeve, and put my ligature back on. I'm going to clean it, and now my horn is disassembled, put in its case, except for the parts I'm going to clean. And that is the basics of a saxophone. Thank you.